Greetings, fellow songwriters and seekers, and welcome back to Muse Measure. If you haven't done so yet, hit the guy in the lotus pedal down below, subscribe so you can benefit from these wonderful questions from people like you. Speaking of, here's one from Aaron Smokley from Wasco, California. Never been to Wasco. Hope things are going well there. Why is it the more I improve my lyric writing skills and my musicianship, the harder it is to write a song that cuts to the bone? It feels like my improved skills and craft are somehow getting in the way or coming up short. Is there a sort of middle ground between skill and inspiration, between craft and some deeper kind of expression? Wow, that's a really great question. And I've experienced this definitely. There's this period in your musical life where you're learning new things and the craft and the skill is developing. And they're just still not fully developed so that they become second nature yet. And you're still thinking about them a lot. So maybe you're thinking about the craft and the skill aspect of songwriting more than expressing yourself. But just like when you learned to walk, you had to, we probably don't remember it, but if you learn how to do anything, typing, whatever it is, learn how to ride a bike, at first it's something that requires a lot of attention, but as you do it more and more, it becomes second nature and you don't have to think about it anymore. And then your craft and skill will serve your expression so that you can cut to the bone and get to the raw emotion. I also like improvisation for this very reason, because you are in the moment, you're creating without thinking about the skill or the craft or what you're doing, music theory-wise, or what you're doing lyric-wise, about, this would be a good metaphor here, or I need to develop this character here. You're not thinking about any of that stuff. Just whatever pops in your head is what pops in your head. And it's really good to focus on a feeling. So you can start the improv session with, what am I feeling right now? What's bothering me? Am I really happy right now? If I am, what am I really happy about? And what does that happiness feel like? So start with the feeling and then let it evolve from there. And then it will cut to the bone, as you say. It'll be about emotion and not about you showing off that you know all these cool chords or that you are very inventive with your melody or your lyrics. I don't know. Maybe my more recent songs don't cut to the bone like the old one used to. I have an album called Thank God that I put out in 2011. And those are probably my rawest songs as far as the emotion. But I was going through a lot at the time. I just had a horrible breakup after a divorce. I had my roommate attempt suicide in a very bloody way that I came home to one evening. I was working at the worst school in New York City with kids with some serious problems who were basically very abusive towards me, and the administration was terrible. And then my mom died on top of that. I should say there's another on top of that. I was collaborating with a friend at the time, and we had a great time. We made great music together, but he was giving me marijuana, which was very strong. And so I was having all these existential dilemmas and freaking out and having paranoia, and basically thought I was going to die at any moment. During this whole period, I was sure that I was going to die in a plane crash. Speaking of that I don't know if you can hear that, but there's a horrible sawing sound outside because they're doing construction in the city, and that's kind of what it felt like. That irritation, that constant irritation. So that album, I'll put a link to it down below. I'm really dealing with a lot of these issues of mortality and heartbreak, and that's very, very raw. But cutting to the bone, is all about what's going on with you in the moment. So if you're not going through these intense times, then you're not going to write music like that, and that's okay. I don't think we should always be striving to be writing, super melancholic music or super intense emotional music. That music is beautiful, and it's some of my favorite music. But you can also take inspiration from, say, like spiritual music. Like think of gospel or Christian music, Oh Happy Day, and listen to them. And that song by Edwin Hawkins Singers is still one of my favorite songs. And I'm not a Christian. I'm an atheist, in fact, a Buddhist atheist. And that song just floors me every time. Elvis, You Never Walk Alone. I mean, my God, those songs cut right to the bone, and they're not about anguish and distress and hurt. They're about hope and joy and fulfillment. And so you can also include that. So you can have that be your aspiration. Right from like that spiritual aspect where you're being raw, you're not putting on airs, you're not acting like you are know-it-all, you're not showing off, that you are using your craft and your skill to more effectively express what it means and what it feels like to be you in that moment. And that will resonate with other people. Whenever you're faking it and showing off, oh, look how smart I am, then that doesn't resonate with people. The vulnerability that we can express in our songs is what people really connect with. And so get to that vulnerable spot and make sure you do. And you can even do daily check-ins about this. Before you do a songwriting session, just ask yourself, how am I feeling? And make sure that your focus of your songwriting is on that and not about, ooh, I know this cool chord progression now, so I'm going to use this, or I learned this new scale. Now, it's fine to use that, but you can just say, okay, I'm going to use these chords, and then remind yourself as you're creating the melody, you're improvising over this chord progression, or you're improvising using this new scale, that you are using it to express something very, very emotional. So you balance it, right? So you have the very cerebral, intellectual aspect of music. You got to balance that with the very kind of salt of the earth, raw human emotion that's just basic. It's basic for every human being. And basically every animal, right, feels these things. So I think that's how you get around this issue of not being able to cut through the bone and not feel things. And it may just be a cycle, It's just like, you learn new things, you get good at your craft and your skill, you feel like you're, alienated from the raw emotion. Or maybe not alienated, it's not the right word, but you're just distant from that. You're thinking music in a different way. But don't worry, good old life is going to come and kick your ass again, and you're going to be, kicked right back to the curb, and you're going to have something to really connect with again emotionally. So no matter how fancy your skills are, doesn't matter. This reminds me of going to see Mohini Day at the Blue Note a few weeks ago. That I went to go see it. Mohini Day is an absolutely incredible bass player. I'll put a link to her down below. She's an Indian woman and just absolutely amazing. But she plays jazz fusion and just acrobatic playing, absolutely insane. But it was just kind of funny. So she'd be telling stories about the song. So she'd be like, well, this is a song about, how I felt, my family's struggles in India and all we dealt with. And then the song would start, be like, and I just thought that was pretty funny, Not to say that that doesn't express her emotion, but it's just like, this is like the peak of musical skill and accomplishment to be able to play like this. And it's just so funny that you would not associate that emotion with that level of playing. Maybe she's feeling it like that. I don't think that's what's being communicated in that music, but I may be wrong. So this is a problem even the experts have, even the most accomplished musicians have. In fact, the more you learn, the harder it is to tap back into the emotion. But look at someone like Beethoven and what he did with his Ninth Symphony. And he's at his peak of his skill and just an amazing level of innovation in his composition and things like that. And he writes this music that just cuts right through you. And it's absolutely gorgeous and just tears you apart with all the little surprises and turns. So that's also something to keep in mind. Just when you get to, you're following a path down the fancy and the showing off and the way too crafty, you can make a quick U-turn at that point, or a quick turn around the corner where you ground it in some kind of emotion. You're doing something in major maybe, and then you just drop it in minor for a second. Just, you throw some surprise in there, but it's an emotionally jarring surprise. Going to a minor is one way to do it, or throwing in a new chord that is kind of dissonant with the chord progression, and you dwell in it. You don't just hit it real quick. You make people sit in it and experience it. So that's another way around this issue. I hope some of this is helping, but it's just part of the process, and just it's going to be okay as these skills get more second nature to you and they become something you don't think about. Then you're going to be able to return to emotion. But sometimes in your life, that's not what's going on in your experience, and that's okay. But try to reframe your mindset whenever you're doing a songwriting session that, like, remember what you're doing it for. You're trying to express what it's like to be me in the moment and not show off your fancy lyrics, being super poetic or super musical. And I'm guilty of doing this quite often, in some of my songs. But the ones that I think really work are ones that are very, very grounded and direct in their language and the lyrics, and the music is direct in its emotion. It's not flying all over the place. All right, I'm being long-winded, so I apologize for that. But if you like this video, if you found it useful, please like it and subscribe to this channel. Help spread the word about Muse Measure and all these wonderful questions that we're learning together by the input from viewers like you. So best of luck with this process and your spiritual process, your songwriting process, and I will see you next time.